Good morning and welcome back. President Trump canceling his meeting with Vladimir Putin to send a message to the Kremlin about their aggression against Ukraine.
I think this is the right signal at the right time, and I appreciate that, and I hope it will be followed up by more decisive action when it comes to the misdeeds of Putin.
All right, so does this send the right message to the rest of the world, and what can we expect when the president addresses other G20 leaders?
Joining us now with her expert insight is international relations expert Dr. Rebecca Grant. Doctor, thank you for your time this morning. What do you think of the news when the president decided to officially cancel this meeting?
He's done the right thing, and he's canceled this because Russia fired on Ukrainian Navy ships and then seized them and held them. He's trying to send a very strong message. NATO backs this up. This is the first open and direct use of Russian military force against Ukraine, and so an essential step. We have to contain Russia's ambitions.
You know, a lot of people think that it was partly because of what's happening in Ukraine right now, but also because the Russia investigation and Bob Mueller has exploded with activity here in the last couple of days, and it might not optically look good to be hanging out with Vladimir Putin in Buenos Aires. What do you think about that?
I really don't see that at all, and Putin is not off the hook. Angela Merkel has taken on the task of meeting with him to raise the issue of the tensions in Ukraine. There's a possibility of even more Russia sanctions, so there is plenty going on in the world, and I think that is what President Trump is reacting to. We've also seen an increase of NATO military forces, more NATO air policing over the Black Sea. It's a very serious situation, and I don't think this domestic issue has much at all to do with President Trump's international response.
Here's one of President Trump's tweets on this. He says, quote, based on the fact that the ships and sailors have not been returned to Ukraine from Russia, I have decided it would be best for all parties concerned to cancel my previously scheduled meeting. And then in another tweet, he says, in Argentina with President Vladimir Putin, I look forward to a meaningful summit again as soon as this situation is resolved. I think most people, Doctor, agree that this meeting is going to have to happen at some point, but the question is when.
And there is an invitation for Putin to visit the U.S. at some point. Trump and Putin need down the road, sometime in 2019, to talk again about nuclear arms control. They need to talk about space, and they need to talk about Syria. But now Ukraine has really come to the top of the list, and Putin is pushing Ukraine closer and closer to NATO. So I expect to see discussions about Ukraine as well, but this is just not the moment. Now, Trump may encounter Putin there at the summit, but this is an important step that he's taken to deny this meeting at this time. Good move on his part.
Yeah. All right, to another interesting topic, and another guest at the G20 summit will be, well, I guess the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia. But you have this conflict in Yemen, this civil war. The Americans, the U.S. has been backing the Saudis and trying to fight this terrorist group that's been trying to take over in Yemen that's backed by Iran. And now it looks like we're not going to be funding that anymore, or at least that's what the Senate is voting for pretty handily, to stop the support of the Saudis. What do you think about that?
Yes, and Rob, there's a huge backstory here, which is, according to Secretary Mattis, the sides in the Yemen conflict are pretty close to starting some serious negotiations in Sweden. There's a ceasefire that's supposed to take place. We've seen fighting diminish a lot since the middle of November. So although the Senate has said no more funding going forward, in fact, the UN Special Envoy is working to get a ceasefire, and we're hoping for negotiations. So the Pentagon is starting to plan for a massive humanitarian relief effort. And Saudi Arabia and the UAE have pledged over $500 million to fund relief supplies into Yemen.
Doctor, the president has faced pretty tough criticism over his handling of Saudi Arabia. What do you think about how he's handled it?
Yes, he has, and I think he's handled it fairly well. You know, Secretary Mattis said that he had actually listened personally to the translation of what went on, and, you know, there's no smoking gun is what we've been told. Saudi Arabia remains a key ally. They're a member of the G20, the only Arab nation in the G20. We're not giving up that alliance, but the best thing for Saudi Arabia right now is to take this chance, show their humanity to the world, put this ceasefire into place in Yemen, and then back it up with the humanitarian relief that they have pledged to the Yemen situation.
And this is kind of this whole thing has been kind of a gift to Iran by backing off the support for the Saudis here. It's interesting to see how that plays out. All right, Doctor, thank you so much. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
And to Fox